I confused myself this morning. Oh, I guess my mic was unmuted all morning. You guys probably could have heard me typing, and luckily I wasn't saying anything. Let's transition over and get started. First of all, thank you, Vengeance NS, for the subscription this morning. Really appreciate it. It was very kind of you. Good to see everybody. Olev, Michael, welcome everybody to the stream. If you guys probably saw me struggling with the linting stuff. I'm trying to upgrade the linting right now. It looks like we've got some circular references and stuff. There's some stuff I really want to clean up in this project, and I've said stuff so many times. But let's talk a little bit about what we did before the stream, and then we can get right into it. So that fixes that. That. It moved it into out of my dependencies to my dev dependencies. That's the right way to go. Perfect. So let's take a look at what we did this morning, just to show, right? So the very first thing we did is we got rid of yarn. I'm not a fan of yarn. We did yarn because when I built this project, it was a learning project for a previous job. Sheriff is really, really cool. Sheriff, that one's from Rainer. Rainer, and I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. But Rainer is one of the Angular architects. You know, the group works with Manfred and everything. And Sheriff looks really, really cool. It's very similar to what NX does with their module boundaries, but it has some other features to it that I really like. So very cool. Very, very cool to see, people out there using Sheriff and things like that. The Angular Architects group really puts together some amazing stuff. So that's really cool to hear about. So the next, after we moved off of Yarn, which, if you guys like Yarn, don't let me talk you out of it. It is my own personal struggles with Yarn. I just really don't like Yarn, and I don't understand Yarn. And if you guys like Yarn, go for it. The next thing we did was we just upgraded NX this morning, and then we upgraded Angular. Then the next big piece is I want to upgrade ESLint. And to upgrade ESLint, you have to get off of the old ESLint RC files and into their flat file config. And the way I decided to do that was to move off of the ESLint plugin for NX and go to their built-in plugin. So it uses inferred stuff when you do linting and things like that, which allows you to use better files. We may have to run the flat file config. We are on an ESLint rc.json. Hey, Grammarly. I just need to uninstall that at this point. I found a tool that I can run locally that will replace Grammarly. That's probably what I'm going to do instead of having all of their ads and stuff pop up and everything. One thing I'm not sure about. Actually, let's just go forward with the migration and see what happens. It may be able to infer what we need to do. So really, there's all these ESLint plugins that we need to upgrade. There's a whole bunch of stuff with like Apollo and Nest and all of that. I don't really want to dig into that too far. As long as Apollo works, um, I'm not going to mess with it. I'm not a big fan of Apollo and GraphQL. As you guys probably remember, one of the saltiest streams I had was with this full stack dynos dealing with Apollo. Um, so we're probably going to leave all of this Apollo and GraphQL and Nest.js stuff alone. So let's get ESLint migrated. I want to migrate JS Cutlery. Um, we probably need to migrate OpenAI, but we'll come back to that later. We need to upgrade some of these prettier and style lints and stuff like that. So we'll get into that. And then I want to dig into Zod and make sure we don't break anything with our Zod version 4 migration. And then we should be out of all of the migrations. I'm really hoping to get this stuff done quickly today. But I do want to make sure we're in a good place, give ourselves the best chance to succeed as we move forward with I want to move out of what we've got now into a signal forms. That's really the whole reason we're still here. Is when we did our signal forms experiment, we built signal forms from the ground up. I want to take a look at it from a different point of view where we have existing signal stores and we have existing components, and we want to change those components into signal forms components. I really want to dig into that. The next piece, once we get all of this done, that is on my list of things to do, is there's a TS library out there, a TypeScript library out there, that lets you create your own MCPs. I've never created my own MCP, so I would love to create an MCP. Maybe we'll make an MCP for the Star Wars API, or an MCP for the Rick and Morty API that's out there. Yeah, exactly. Apollo and reactive forms to the garbage. I'm actually not opposed to that. Just ripping Apollo entirely out. The problem is that most of the stuff here is GraphQL, and I don't want to go too far into rewriting our server. I don't know. You guys tell me. If you're interested in full stack development, I'm happy to upgrade Nest. I'm happy to do all of this stuff and show you how to move from like a GraphQL to a REST-based architecture. Which, if that's interesting to everybody, I'm happy to do that. I am completely happy to rip out Apollo and Graph. And I'm not gonna be. I'm not gonna mince words. I'm an Apollo. I'm a Graph hater. I guess I'm just so old school. I don't really get all of the hype around Graph, and that's on me. I don't want to talk you guys out of it. But yeah. Oh, Tanstack query. That might be an interesting way to go also, Ole. Um, that might be a very interesting way to go. I'm not entirely opposed to that, Ole. Let's think about that. Maybe what we'll do is we'll get this working as is. We'll look at creating our own MCP using TypeScript, because I'm very fascinated in that. And to be, to be totally transparent here, and I'm berating myself in the back of my head, right? Because whenever you're like, oh, to be totally honest, to be totally transparent, really all you're doing is you're telling everybody, hey, think about all the times when I'm not totally transparent, or think about all the times when I'm not totally honest, right? That's just my little streamer brain going, dude, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that. You're messing up, you're messing up, you're messing up. Anyways, I would love to build something MCP. I've never built an MCP. And I would love to build an MCP on stream with everybody. Definitely not Angular specific, but very much, I would argue that it's probably more important for a modern engineer or developer or architect or whatever to understand how MCPs are built, and what we can do with MCPs. And because we can build one in TypeScript, that means, we don't need to worry about Python. We don't need to worry about some other language, that we don't, this is mostly a front end stream. And so I try to keep everything, when we do back end stuff, I intentionally chose Node, because it's a language that we all understand and we can talk about the concepts without having to worry too much about the language. And the fascinating thing I was just reading is that TypeScript is slowly taking over the AI world as the language of choice. That a lot of people were looking at a lot of the Perl stuff as gatekeeping. And as TypeScript's becoming more and more popular, it's opening up AI to the masses. And I'm here for it. I'm here to help people build MCPs. I'm here to help people with AI. I mean, let's be honest, LLMs and AI are our jobs, right? We work with them every day. We deal with the output from them every day. I'm sitting here thinking, and I was running a query against a repository, and I was using Claude, and Claude decided to call out the fact that the README said, hey, you shouldn't disable ESLint rules. And it said, you're disabling ESLint rules with abandon, completely violating what you wrote in the README. You shouldn't be disabling ESLint rules quite as much as you are. It was awesome. I loved it. But let's go ahead and let's migrate our ESLint. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do NCU, and we're gonna filter it down to ESLint. And let's just take a look at it with our format group. Let's just see what ESLint libraries are. So these Angular ESLint libraries, we're going to migrate these ones using NX Migrate because they might have Angular migrations to go along with them. The TypeScript ESLint, I don't think they have those. So I think what we'll do is we'll migrate these ones specifically, but let's take a look at the TypeScript ESLint parser and just see. So let's take a look at TypeScript /ESLint. So here's the library, and let's go into the docs. Oh, does this have the ESLint? So this just goes into what's in the new flat config. I think one thing I was wondering, and we probably need to do it, but let's experiment first. Let's go take a look at, what is this? That's fine. That's fine. So the ESLint's flat config, but what I want to take a look at, versioning, what about TSLint? No, so this is definitely not going to have Angular migrations. But we're going to break a bunch of stuff here. So let's go with the UI here. Because we don't want the angular ones, we actually want everything else. And for those of you guys who don't know, I use NCU. Yeah, Signal Forms has made some huge changes, and the 21.2 changes look very compelling, Ole. Um, yeah, um, very compelling. And let me copy this link, and let's just bring this up over here. Yeah, there's some very cool stuff we can do here, and this is the stuff I want to get into because we can use all of our Zod stuff that we already built. So we're in a good place. Yep, we want to do a PNPM install, and this is going to break all of our linting. I actually want to shut down Antigravity while we upgrade these lint packages. And so it already did the PNPM install. So now we should be able to do PNPM exec, NX run many, and we'll lint these with verbose. Just to, yeah, something broke already. Right? Something big broke. And what did we break? It's saying it can't read the version. I'm really curious. Let's just try converting to flat config. Um, and see what we get out of this. So again, we're going to use PNPM exec, and then we're going to generate flat configs for all of our stuff. Um, cannot read properties of undefined reading version. Is that going to do anything for us? I'm curious if that run migrations catch up is going to do anything that we're missing. But I cannot read properties undefined of version. Yeah, there's stuff going on here. Um, very curious. I was hoping that this would work, but it looks like we've got some issues going on. I'm checking signal form docs. Yeah, it is often better to create a new NX project and just move it across. Um, it's React version detect. Rules. What does this error mean? Um, So let's just see here. So it's specific to NX, but I'm curious. Um, so if I do P npm exec yes lint dash dash version, I'm on version 10, so that one. Just trying to figure out where it's missing the version stuff. Um, so it looks like, yeah. Well, no, that's not type, but like it's trying to add a React version, but I don't think we need a React version. Um, yeah. Um, because I think we need a flat file config.
How about now? Okay, that's messed up. Um, I I just looked at my levels, and for whatever reason, it had swapped whatever my in. Uh, so I lost a whole bunch of information here. Um, that's awesome. That's really awesome. Um, anyway, what happened is I don't know when this happened, but for whatever reason, Streamlabs just decided, hey, you know what would be really, really cool if we swapped off of your microphone. I don't know what microphone it stopped. AI trying to stop you saying anything about AI. It could be. There's so much AI built into into Windows. I'm actually a little bit frustrated with that. I don't know how much you guys heard, so let's back up a little bit and just talk about Ole's Ole's question. How is AI affecting IT in general? Um, and the biggest piece I'm seeing from where I am in the organization that I work for is LLMs and AI are multipliers, right? So if we take devs and we put them on a -1 to a 1 scale, right? With regards to their skills. If you apply an LLM, let's say the LLM is a times 5 multiplier, right? If you take a dev that's at a 1 and you multiply by 5, um, well, now that dev is now a 5, right? If you take a dev that's at a 0 and you multiply by 5, well, that dev is still at a 0. If you take a -1 and multiply by 5, now they're at -5. And this is the issue, right? Is if you have the skills and you have the talent to use LLMs effectively, you move from a 1 to a 5. That gap between you and a 0 has just increased, right? Um, the gap between a 0 and a -1 also has increased, right? They become a -5. Um, so if you stay in the middle and you're just in the middle, the gap between the worst and the best just got much wider for you. But the gap between the best and the worst got even wider, right? Um, and that's the issue. And that's why, as engineers, as architects, as developers, as whatever you want to call yourself, right? You need to level up your skills. You need to level up your critical thinking. You need to level everything up because there are people out there that are effectively using AIs and LLMs to become that much better than everybody else. And if you can't do the same, you're being left behind. Um, and I'm very, very much simplifying this, but the people who effectively use AIs and LLMs are so much better, right? And the people who ineffectively use them are so much worse. And the big problem is that, like, organizational level, how do we allow those people who are going to become so much better to keep becoming more and more better, right? While also limiting the damage of those people who are going to become so much worse. And that becomes a difficult thing. That becomes a very difficult thing for us to solve at an organizational level. And then you also have to think about things like in IT and with AI. And this is kind of the elephant in the room that when you talk about the big LLMs, right? The thing they aren't addressing, and the thing that's very, very difficult to address, and really is probably going to take some very costly legal battles in all the various courts across the world, is if an LLM generates code, there's a couple of things to consider. First of all, if I'm an engineer and I'm sitting here typing and working with an LLM, the LLM generates some code, but it generates so much code that I miss a mistake that it made. And let's say that mistake costs $100 million, right? Who's legally responsible for that $100 million? Is it me? Is it the model? Is it the company providing the model? Right? The reality is they're probably going to throw it at the engineer, and the engineer is going to lose their job. Let's take it one step further, right? Agentic flow is the big keyword, right? Everybody's running agents against their code. Let's say that an agent runs and it makes some changes in the middle of the night, and that winds up costing $100 million. Now who's on the line for that? Right? Is it the agent? Well, you can't really sue or fire an agent. You can't really sue or fire a model. Is it the company providing it? Is it the right? Like, there's some very sticky legal ramifications that I think a lot of companies need to think about. As we get deeper and deeper into these AI, I don't want to call them battles or like these. The reality is it's here to stay. There's so much money that's been thrown at it. What will it look like in a year? I don't know. What will it look like in 5 years? I don't know. But I'll tell you this, the people not to listen to are the people whose job depends on LLM succeeding. You don't listen to Microsoft. You don't listen to like Sam Altman. You don't listen to, you know, the people who are, like Claude or any of the people out there whose job it is to push hype. And there's tons of them telling you, oh yeah, your job's going to be gone in a year, blah, blah, blah. Who knows? I disagree because of a lot of the issues that pop up and a lot of the stuff that hasn't been resolved. What I do agree with is there's a lot of industry experts out there saying, if you don't use the tooling to make yourself better, you're not just being left behind, you're being left so far behind that you can't catch up. And so someone from Microsoft said that in 2 years, developers will be no longer needed. Yeah, I saw that same story. And right, and they said that 2 years ago, and 2 years, right? Like their job is to get companies to dump a ton of money into AI, and it's been working really, really well. These guys are getting tons of money for not really producing the outcomes that they promise. And if you flip things on their head and you take a look at it from a company's point of view, right? From a company's point of view, the AI proposal is really sexy, right? Like if you can get a 24-hour developer that's constantly working on your code 24/7 for pennies on the dollar of what it costs for you to actually bring in an engineer and an architect and all of this stuff, of course you're going to want to do it, right? That increases your margins ridiculously because when you're developing software, most of your cost is in humans that you can't really like. I've been in the industry for so long, and how many times have we tried to come up with metrics that really measure developers? And we failed, and we failed, and we failed, and we failed, and we failed. And the problem is that developers and engineers and architects were a lot like authors. And there was a famous author, and I don't want to misattribute this, but they were asked, what's one of the hardest things about doing your job? And he said, one of the toughest things is that people don't realize when I'm sitting in my office staring out the window into the distance, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm looking off the mountains in the distance right now. So, sitting in my office, just staring out the window off into the distance, I'm working. But it doesn't look like he's working, right? And he goes on to explain that, people don't understand that. And so they'll come in and they'll interrupt, right? Or they'll be like, oh, all you do is just sit there and stare, or, right? It's very much the same thing. There's a lot of creativity and a lot of mental work that goes into our job. And quite often, uh, an engineer or an architect can be doing something that seems completely unrelated, um, but their brain is working and processing, right? I can't tell you how many times I've gotten up, gone on a walk, and come back and solved the problem. I've solved the problem while I'm on a walk because my brain is just working on it, and I'm out, just enjoying the weather. Or how many times I've had a shower thought, or just different, like, your brain works very, very differently from a lot of other, a lot of other work. Like physical work you can measure, but even then it's difficult because you may have somebody who pushes really, really hard, gets a lot done in bursts, and then takes breaks, and then gets a lot done in bursts and takes breaks, and maybe they're better than the person who's just consistently working. We don't know. um and so, yeah. um maybe we will have more work to do after all the vibe coders. There are a lot of people out there who are making money right now cleaning up after vibe coders. um so you're not wrong there. And yeah, it's just, the problem is that it's really, really hard to determine the quality of engineers. um and th- there are so many metrics that you can measure them on, but you have engineers who come into teams and don't appear on a lot of metrics, but they're so good at their job and they're so good at motivating and helping others that having them on a team makes that team 5 times better, right? You take them off the team and suddenly the team doesn't produce. And you're like, well, wait, we took out the dead weight, right? The person who's not producing PRs, the person who's not doing this, this, and this. Why is the team worse, right? So there's those intangibles too, that you can have somebody who makes an entire team better. And it just becomes very, very difficult. And so if you look at that, like all that uncertainty, all the difficulty of measuring, and you tell a team, hey, or you tell a business, hey, we're going to get rid of all of this for you, right? Because any hire is really a roll of the dice. No matter how good your hiring process is, I'll tell you right now, hiring anybody is a roll of the dice in our industry. Um, so if you could get rid of all of that and then have have the ability to have your code worked on 24/7, pennies on the dollar, fixes go out overnight, it's constantly upgrading and maintaining code. That's a very sexy proposition from a business standpoint. And that's why your companies are dumping tons and tons of money into these companies that just make these, I think the best word I like to describe them is bombastic, right? They're just making ridiculous promises, right? They're out there being completely bombastic because they have to be. That's how they survive. But these promises are so appealing that if they're even remotely possible, companies are like, this is going to save us so much money in the long run. That's why you're being encouraged to use AI. That's why companies are trying to lay people off, and use AI. And by the way, a lot of these companies that have laid people off because of AI have wound up having to hire people back. Um, so there's a lot of uncertainty. That's the first thing I want to make sure that everybody understands. There's absolutely a lot of uncertainty, and it's scary. Um, However, I think the future is. I think the future of IT is bright for the people who work on their skills. For the people who just want to show up and collect a paycheck, I think it's going to be very, very difficult. Um, and that there's going to be a dividing line, and unfortunately, people are going to be caught up in that. Um, we still can't process the graph. And if I can't get this to work, we're just going to go back and we'll figure it out later. Because I don't want to spend a lot of my time, and a lot of your time. Oh, hey, Oh, yes, 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 we're good. We're good. We're in a good place now. Um, so the no extra semi here now becomes um I don't want it turned off. I want it to be an error. But we can actually, so we're in a good place here. Let's pull up anti-gravity. Um, so we lost our ESLint RC, that's fine. We're going to search for no extra. Um, so we've got a couple of no extra semis here. And it actually added it right after. Um, so let's go take a look at this just so that everybody knows. So here, if we search for, um, oh, this is the NX one. We want to look at TypeScript ESLint, and here, if we search for no, um, does it not have the migration stuff here? Um, ESLint, no extra semi. Oh, there it was right there. Um, so here we go. This rule was deprecated. Um, and so you can use the stylistic ESLint plugin. Which we could do. So stylistic is going to fix some issues. And so if we look here for no dash extra semi, so it's saying, hey, no extra semi is an error. Incorrect code for this rule. Examples of correct code for this rule. Yeah, let's go ahead and add stylistic for now. So let's go to the getting started. So the reason we have to do this is they moved a lot of stuff out of ESLint core into TypeScript ESLint. And so there's a lot of stuff that we need to just move to the stylistic. And they do have a migration guide. So this is a helpful way. So if you guys are ever doing this migration, that link will help. And luckily, I've done this a couple of times, so I remembered it. But the TypeScript ESLint, you want to first to check version 4 for an even smoother migration experience. Manual migration. So here we're going to add the stylistic ESLint plugin. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll do PNPM. So there we go. Now we've got the stylistic guide stuff in here. And so now where we've got TypeScript ESLint, now we can just do stylistic. And here we can also do stylistic. And actually, Pick that up right away. And so now if we go back to here and we run our lint, hopefully we've got everything figured out now. More verbose. We're probably hitting another rule that it doesn't know what it is. Could not find plugin stylistic. Oh. So we install this, and then inside of here, we need to add stylistic. Yeah, I don't want the metadata stuff here. So we need to go into the flat config. We need to add our plugins. So do these files have plugins in them? Yes. So where we change this over to be stylistic, config, ignores that. There's our plugins. Another compat. I think we can just add our plugin here. Let me take a look at this stuff again. So here we've got our plugins. Yeah, export default plugins and then rules. So again, yeah, we should be able to just go here and we should be able to go at stylistic as stylistic. And there we go. So that imports the stylistic plugin, I believe. Yep. So if we take a look at our stuff here, we can see that what we did is we added the stylistic plugin and we imported it, and that should allow our stylistic rules to work. So let's go ahead and run this again with the verbose to just make sure that we've got everything working. No. Stylistic plugin is not defined. Did I not? I thought I brought that in. I thought I hit import stylistic plugin. There we go. Interesting. I thought I had brought that in. Obviously, Antigravity disagrees, and that's fine. So there we go. So here we're getting, it's running the lint for 9 projects. So it looks like because we've run this before, it's all hashed and everything. And let's reset NX and just see if we can get it to actually run the linting outputs. But at this point, we've upgraded it. And I've been reminded of some stuff that needs to happen. The stylistic stuff is important. That's what adds a lot of the um, semicolon and stuff that we had before. Um, there we go. So now it's actually running the linting after we run the reset. And we're seeing, hey, we're getting some problems. 53 errors and 23 warnings. Holy cow. Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of circular issues. Which is not cool. That's a big problem. But we've upgraded ESLint. So ESLint ignore has been changed. ESLint RC was removed. This is using the compatibility config, which we could probably get rid of in the future. I just, at this point, I'm fine with it the way it is. We don't have, we might have ESLint RCs. That's right. That's what the compatibility is for. And so it added all the appropriate stuff. So running that NX convert to flat file is a good one. And then the ESLint RC was removed. And it's just all changing all of this stuff over. Because we're able to infer it and we set stuff up to be inferred, it's able to make a lot of changes here. So we're just going to stage everything. It all works, but we can see, okay, this is a little bit crazy. Why are we frozen here? There we go. Upgrade. ESLint. So there's that. Let's go ahead and push this. So the last thing I want to do is just take a look and make sure that we've got everything. So we've got the Angular ESLint stuff here. We've also got some stuff down here. I don't want to dig in too much with this stuff. So let's go ahead and we're going to make the upgrades to the Angular ESLint stuff. So we're going to pm exec nx migrate at angular -eslint. Yeah, we can do the template parser. And anti-gravity might be causing some issues here. Just want to make sure we can shut that down. Okay, we're looking okay. So we got the template parser. And if we go here and we just do a format group, we can see that we need the ESLint plugin and the ESLint plugin template. So npm exec nx migrate at angular -eslint. And here we want the ESLint. Yeah, we can do the plugin template. That's fine. And then we can do the plugin. And then we will be good. But that will get us up to the latest version of the Angular ESLint plugins. So there we go. There was nothing there, and so that now we can take off the template piece and just update the plugin, and then we can do the no frozen lock file, and then make sure everything works, and then we're done with ESLint, and we can take a look at some of the other stuff. There we go. So let's go ahead and just run our lint targets, just making sure that everything works. And if everything works, we're good here, and we're going to move into a couple of other things. Yeah, we're good. So we'll clean up linting errors here in the future. But upgrade Angular -ESLint. Boom. So there's that piece. So now let's just take a look at what we've got left to upgrade. I do want to make sure that we're getting out of this upgrade stuff here. So we've got Tailwind stuff in here. We've got Cypress. We've got ng mocks. Some more Tailwind, TypeScript, ESLint. We'll take a look at these. I'll do these later. Daisy, I'm not too concerned about. Apollo, we've got some ESLint stuff here. JS Cutlery. We're using JS Cutlery for a few things. So JS Cutlery is something we want to upgrade. We'll take care of that. The Nest.js stuff we're going to leave alone. We'll do the testing stuff later when we come into testing again. ESLint, we'll look at that later. OpenAI, we'll look at that later. I would like to upgrade the Prettier plugin. We could probably migrate StyleLint also. So let's let's see. Let's do NCU/Prettier/ here. Let's grab StyleLint. And actually we're not, well, we can still do this. Format group. So those are the ones we want to do. So let's go ahead and grab these, and we'll just toggle all of them. Yeah, we want to install. And this will pretty much finish everything with our linting. So now we can just say, hey, upgrade Prettier plugin and StyleLint. And we'll commit those and push them. StyleLint is run inside of our editor, so we won't really see anything here. So at this point now, really we're into some bigger stuff that I want to dig into. The other stuff we can pick up later, like ng mocks, that's more testing stuff. I don't want to do too much testing here, but JS Cutlery, let's make sure we upgrade this. And before we do that, let's take a look. So there's our ESLint stylistic. Here, let's take a look at JS Cutlery /operators. And so this is the JS Cutlery dev kit. And inside of here, we're using operators. That's at version 3.2. And one of the things I want to take a look at inside of here is we're using Suspensify is really what we're using from this. RX Angular State. What I'm looking for is just like any let's take a look at changelog and see when they went to version 3, because we're on version 2. So here's this, and then version 3, nothing changed. And then 3.1.1 is Zone.js stuff. So my concern was like on the major version bump, were we going to get a problem? And it doesn't look like it. So we're going to go pnpm exec nx migrate, and we're going to just grab the @js cutlery cutlery/operators. And then the last piece that we're going to take a look at is Zod. And then we're going to try and serve the project and just make sure that everything, actually, we should probably do it right now with JS Cutlery. So there we go. Let's go ahead and launch this. So we're going to pnpm exec nx serve dynos-api, and that should serve our backend for us. I already started up the Docker. So this should all pick up really, really easily. Yep. So our application is running. Great. So now we can pnpm exec nx serve. And if it doesn't have no default project, perfect. No, we're not serving that. We're serving Angular-dynos. Yeah, let's go ahead and sync those. I forgot that we'd added the NX Tailwind sync to make sure that everything works. At the end of last stream, I think we got dropped by, again, there was an issue with my DHCP server. So there we go. Everything is up and serving. Let's just make sure that if we take a look at the console, let's just refresh this to make sure. So it looks like we're good. And if we go, and let's just, let's try the leading one. And that looks good. Let's add one, our test, test. And I'm missing the tab key all over the place. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Our test has feathers. 1, 1. Save that. There's our test right there, so we can delete it. And great. So it looks like our Suspensify stuff is all working great. We're good. We upgraded JS Cutlery. And we're good there. The Zod one, I am a little bit concerned about because there are some changes with Zod, but I think we're probably just best served to just dive in and do it. So if we go take a look, here, and we just take a look at Zod.js. There it was right there. Oh, there we go. I've got a one already up. So inside of here, the Zod migration guide. So we install Zod. Zod 3 to 4 is available, but there's just some things that we probably need to change. So you'll see here that instead of error, it's now message. And here, like the string is a little bit weird. So as we move to Zod 4, the nice thing about this is that it's going to make our bundles much smaller. So we'll just work through all of this stuff as we need to. But I think we can just, so NCU, and we'll just look for Zod. And we'll format that in. And I cannot type today. I am, so yeah, we're good there. So we're just going to grab it with, we can actually do a -U. We don't even need to do the UI piece. And there we go. So now we've upgraded to Zod. Version 4. Oh, it didn't run the install. So we'll go ahead and run the install. Oh, it even tells me right here, hey, you need to run this. Oh, and I didn't even have JS Cutlery. I didn't install it. Okay. Well, I guess we're doing both at the same time now. So you know what? YOLO mode activated. Upgrade Zod. And we're gonna see what mess we made. So let's go here. And actually we need to serve it. So pnpm exec nx serve our Angular dynos. We can see here, this is all running fine. Okay. So it looks like we've got some issues to clean up. So let's take a look. Safe parse return type. So our dinosaur.ts has some issues. Again, dinosaur.ts has issues. And this invalid type was specifically called out here in Zod. So if we take a look at invalid type error, so we dropped the invalid type and required errors. So let's take a look at that first. So let's go to Antigravity. And we can get rid of that. We can get rid of that. We're done with styling. We're going to be back in components in the future, but for right now, we'll take a look at that stuff too. But right now, we want our dinosaur.ts. No. What is the error? Yeah, it is dinosaur.ts. Dinosaur.ts right there. Okay, so safe parse return type doesn't exist. That's fine. We'll figure out what we were doing with safe parse return type. Okay. So it's our format stuff. We're gonna and Zod has some nice stuff for that. But here we do z.string, and then we've got an error handler where we can pass in the issue. So let's go ahead and just copy this. So we've got an example here. And we'll just paste that right here. So we can see z.string, and here we can just go error, and here we push issue. Did that really do it? So dinosaur name is required, yes. And here field is required, and dinosaur must be a string. So yes, it picked up on it. I don't know if it picked on it up on it from my comment up above or what, but here, we should be able to do that. Yep. We should be able to do that. And issue. I don't know what happened there, but we're good there. Invalid type error. What is going on here? There we go. There we go. And there we go. And the required error, I don't know why it's leaving that behind. But there we go. No. Yeah. So that should solve all of that. And now the last piece is this formatter. It has a safe parse return on it. Yeah, and that doesn't exist. So is there safe format? So formatting errors. So we can do a treeify. Oh, and we can do a prettify. We can also do flatten errors. Okay, so what are we doing here? Let's find where we're actually using this. Let's find some places where we're formatting dino errors. Format dino errors. So right here, like here's an example of it. They're both in this they're both in this file. So dino result is Zod safe parse result. I just need to add a Z here. Is that all I need? Oh, no. It's not a safe parse return type anymore. Now it is a safe parse result. Zod safe parse result. So here, if we change this to be Zod safe parse result. We should be able to pull this in. No. Can we bring it from Z? What is going on here? Oh, it's only one type argument. Is that the same issue here? Yeah. So this is really only one generic on it. And it looks like that all works out. So it was really just changing the parse type to a Zod safe parse. And we should be able to remove this. And that's the nice thing about having these files for Zod and keeping things all together is this should all work. Let's just make sure that it all works. We'll just pnpm exec nx build angular -dinos and just make sure that it all builds. And then we'll try serving it. So there we go. It all builds. The nice thing about this is, so we're at 551 KB. This initial chunk is pretty large. We could do some chunk evaluation later. But I think we could make our chunks a lot smaller by using Zod better. Because it would be nice to get our initial bundle under 10K again. But I don't want to dig into that too much right now. So if we serve our Angular dinos again, and while that's serving, let's go ahead, just take a look at this, and we just say, fix Zod after update. We can push that. So Zod 4 should be smaller. So there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Import star as the, and what are we doing? If we go to our anti-gravity stuff here, it's saying we can make our stuff a lot smaller. If we do import star as Z from Zod, but that breaks here. But we can fix that with a Z dot. So that fixes that. So now we should be able to, that still builds, but let's see. Let's see when we build this, if it shrinks our stuff by quite a bit. So when we looked at the build, we had this chunk that was fairly large. Our styles were okay. 40 448.33. 448.33. It looks like not a whole lot has changed. 107.30. Okay, so it looks like this chunk got way smaller. 41 and 9 and 5. 41.95. Yeah, so we shrunk this chunk by quite a bit, and then 505, 383, 151. Yeah, so we were able to take half of this away by changing the way we import Zod, which is one of the big things about Zod. Is they changed it so that tree shaking is much better. So our Zod bundle is probably going to be a lot smaller. So that's a big win for us, right? It's even by better than 50%. We were able to take a lot of Zod out, which was one of the big complaints that a lot of people had about Zod. Is a lot of people were saying, yeah, it's too big. Well, with the new imports, now it can tree shake it and things get smaller. Let's take a look here. If we serve our project, does it work? And if it works, then we're in a good place. We've got about a half hour. In a half hour, I want to see if we can remove component store entirely and move over to signal store. But let's just make sure that everything is working. So here we go. Go ahead and refresh this. Okay, I was like, there's nothing in the console. That's not a good sign. Let's go ahead. Actually, first of all, let's just save it. So we're still getting the error messages as we expected. They're hideous. That's okay. So there's our test dinosaur. It works. We can remove it. Everything looks good. We seem to be in a good place. Our application looks good. It behaves okay, but now we can get into some stuff that Antigravity called out a little while ago. So Gemini 3.1 Pro. So we're using the Gemini 3.1 Pro. And let's give Gemini 3.1 a chance, right? Did I commit stuff? No, I haven't. So here we fixed Zod import and shrunk bundle size. And the nice thing about the tree shaking is that Zod can now be spread across other bundles if we use Zod in other places. But we aren't paying quite the tax for Zod. So let's just see if it picks up on it, right? What is the biggest let's call it tech debt in this project? Provide your reasoning and your certainty as a percentage. And let's just see what Gemini 3.1 Yeah, we're using Gemini 3.1. That's a bad response. Let's try again. Um, there we go. I don't know. So it's thinking for 4 seconds. It's grabbing some information. I'm thinking about possible areas of tech debt as I become more familiar with the organization. Um, so it's begun analyzing that, analyzing package JSON. The initial observation. So we're still waiting for it to actually come up with anything. Tech debt indicators. Extensive use of any types, TS ignore, lingering to do, and fix me comments. So now it's looking its components, dependency, injective, directives, and other areas. And so identifying relevant tools, great. Assessing Angular code base, great. So I like this. I'm now diving into the code base to assess the prevalence of older Angular patterns. Great. I love that. Specifically RxJS and behavior subject. Awesome. It's picking up on signals type stuff. To compare their, oh, yeah, exactly. Compare their usage to signals. I like this. This is really, really good. I've initiated a search for these patterns using available search tools. Great. I've also begun to explore the extent of NGRX component store integration. I've created a task boundary to search the codebase. The task is currently running to find out the biggest sources of tech debt. And so it's analyzing the tech debt. It thought for 6 seconds on the Dino Cred store. I've been examining the available data to identify the most relevant pieces. Investigating potential tech debt. I'm now digging into Angular Dyno's package to assess the extent of component store. I'm hoping it picks up component store. Interesting. It's also looking disable TypeScript or ESLint rules. That's fine. Checking templates to see if the project is using outdated ngIf or ng4 instead of control flow. Very cool. Let's go ahead and run this. Oh, it's going to pick up on the linting issues I've got. The terminal is too small. I've never seen NX output that. Terminal too small. That's awesome. I guess if the terminal is this big. Reviewing linting execution. Analyzing current information. I'm considering potential issues with existing NX implementation given the lint failures. It's not NX that's the problem, it's that the terminal is too small. I'm loving that it's like, no, it's NX's failure. We need to figure out the bug in NX. Identifying, I'm now investigating, specifically focusing on the dinosaur model. After looking through other related files, I've noticed the use of Zod for validation. This could potentially be a point of concern. No, it's not. Evaluating Zod's utility. I'm reassessing the role of Zod in this project. My initial assumption about its potential as a source of tech debt is shifting. I'm now considering its utility, particularly in conjunction with Angular. Perfect. I don't care about schema. Or Prisma. I don't really care about Prisma. Investigating code quality. Where was that? So here we go. Analyzing current information. I'm now diving into the Dynos API package, specifically considering code quality. Interesting. Okay, so it wants to output this to a text file and analyze that text file. I'm okay with that. So it's looking at this, analyzing current information. I mean, it's taking a good while for it to go through this. This is interesting. And I probably could have limited it to just the Angular side of things, and maybe that's what we'll do. But I've got people coming home. I thought somebody was knocking on my door. It was just them opening the front door as they're coming home. I do probably should end on time today, just to make sure that so my daughter turned 18 yesterday. And so we're having a birthday party after I stream today. So it looked at linting, searching for wildcard typing or missing tests that might be the biggest indicator of tech debt. I'll pass that on to her, Ole. She is excited to be 18. I keep telling her that that's because she doesn't know what it means to be an adult yet. And once she figures out what it means to be an adult, she may not be as excited to be 18 as she thought she was. Being an adult looks great from a child's point of view. Being a child looks great from an adult's point of view. I don't think I wish I had the freedom of a child and the freedom of an adult with none of the responsibilities of either. So basically all I just said with a lot of words there was I wish I didn't have any responsibility, right? Read into that whatever you want. So I'm curious about this one. Analyzing initial observations, evaluating potential concerns. I've shifted my focus to so it looks like there's a disconnect between the it's looking at a data mapping issue. Okay. So we've got some stuff. Based on my analysis, the biggest tech debt in the project is the model duplication and manual data mapping between auto-generated GraphQL types and the handcrafted Zod schemas. Disagree, but that's fine. I'm defeating the purpose of GraphQL code gen. Excellent point here. This is actually a really good point that I'm ignoring the GraphQL code gen. That's because I don't like GraphQL, and I'm intentionally ignoring it because I intend to pull it out. And per Ole, maybe we use, um, maybe we use a different library instead of GraphQL. We could change our backend to be entirely REST, rip out all of Apollo, and I am drawing a blank right now as my brain goes a million different places. Tanstack. Um, so look at like Tanstack query or something that we can use against a RESTful backend, and pull out pull out all of the GraphQL, move to a RESTful backend, and then use Tanstack to give us some of the benefits of Apollo. Violating single source of truth, despite having end-to-end type safety from the server, the exact same domain entities are manually redefined using Zod schemas. Fair enough. High maintenance overhead. Explicitly strips away the generated GraphQL types. Exactly. Through manual mappers just to conform to the Zod types. This was intentional. Suboptimal form handling. The Zod duplication utilizes legacy template-driven ng form with ng model and manual validation hookups. Adopting Angular reactive forms or the upcoming signal forms. So the upcoming signal forms I like, but I'm not a big fan of it telling me, hey, use reactive forms. With it calling ng form legacy template driven, I'm actually not a big fan of this. This is not good, but I'm sure this comes from all of the data that it was trained on. ng form and ng model, like reactive forms, ng form and ng model can give you all of the stuff that reactive forms can give you, and more. They're just different ways of looking at the forms, and I tend to prefer ng form over reactive forms. But the reality is, we're really going to shift to signal forms. And it still wants me to use the generated. While having both NGRX component store and signal stores active in the code base would normally be a major architectural debt, your agent's MD explicitly calls this out as an intentional educational feature, so it is exempted. Interesting. So my agent's MD calls it out. Agents, and I'm hitting Control T, but I want agents.md, and educational. Oh. When modifying component store for reactive effect-based state with RxJS operators, use signal store for modern signals. So this piece was generated for me, and I'm gonna remove this. I know it's in the README, but let's remove that, and let's commit that. And removed educational wording from agents.md, and we'll go ahead and push that. And let's go ahead and just tell let's tell Gemini the statement about component store and signal store being educational is a vestigial artifact. Let's consider that the biggest piece of tech debt for now. How do you suggest we go about fixing this tech debt? I want to see what what Gemini thinks about this, right? We've shown that Claude, and I hear Claude 4.6 is really good. Um, so I really want to dig into like what Gemini 3.1. Gemini 3.1 is claiming to be an amazing model. I'll tell you guys right now that OpenAI Codex is hallucinating just as much as all of the other Chat GPT models. I haven't had good experiences with OpenAI Codex. Um, so it's breaking down the Dino Crud Store service, outlining implementation steps, um, and so it's refining the search scope and building an implementation plan. Um, and it has created my implementation plan. So it's created a task view for us. So it's saying to create the Dinos CRUD store using NGRX signals. It wants to implement with state for dinosaurs, sort ascending and has feathers with computed. I actually like that it's calling the stuff out. And it's even, using RX methods for get the table dinos and delete dino side effects. Update components to use the new signal store. Perfect. And then it wants me to clean this up. So I like this task plan. Let's take a look at the implementation plan. The plan outlines the steps to eliminate the tech debt of maintaining 2 NGRX component stores. Proposed changes. So it wants a dinos crud store.ts. Create a new signal store, dino crud store, leveraging NGRX signals. One other thing, and I may lean heavily on Ola and Michael for this piece, but I would like to implement some of the newer stuff from the NGRX extensions. I think that would be a fascinating way to go with this kind of stuff. And I don't write as much code in my day-to-day job as I used to, so definitely having the help here will be useful. And just making sure that text message isn't my wife telling me, "Hey, get off the computer." Got about 12 minutes. So with state, instead of with state, I want to use with immutable state from NGRX extensions. And initialize state with dinosaurs empty. So it's giving some interesting stuff. Expose selectors for sort direction and has feathers with hooks. And then it wants us to delete that and remove the component store implementation. Then modify. I actually really like this. So let's get started with this implementation plan. We're going to put that over here. So the first thing it says is we need a Dinos CRUD store. So let's go ahead and in our stores, we've got a details store, but we don't have a Dinos CRUD store. So let's add a new file to our stores. We're going to call this our Dinos crud.store.ts. Perfect. And now we can hide this so that we can see our files side by side again. So we're going to use NGRX signals. One of the things we want to do, and here we can probably stop serving while we work on this, because we don't want to keep rebuilding. We can actually shut this one down too. So what we want to do is pnpm install. And what we're looking for is our NGRX extensions. Our NGRX toolkit, that's the one we're looking for. So inside of here, and the piece that I'm thinking about is mutations. Specifically, we'll move into mutations in the future, but we want to use with immutable state. So let's go ahead and go back to our NGRX toolkit. And we're just going to install it. So we'll throw down our P for PNPM, and we're going to install our Angular Architects NGRX toolkit. I keep calling it NGRX extensions. I keep thinking about Angular extensions along with this toolkit. So now we've got the toolkit in place. So now we can take a look at immutable state. We definitely want to take a look at our immutable state. So here, we want a state. And if we take a look at like our detail store, we can see that, you know, we've got the store stuff here. So we want to export our Dino CRUD store. So over here, we'll export const dinos CRUD store equals signal store. And for right now, we're just going to do this, and we're going to bring in our signal store, NGRX signals. We've got problems with our signal store, and man, this is getting a little bit crazy. So let's just move this over here, and we'll move our implementation plan over here also. But here's our signal store. We need some state in our signal store, right? And the signal store has dinosaurs, sort ascending, and has feathers. And that's our filters here. So we can, within our models here, we've got our detail state, but let's add a new file. And let's call this our dino, or we'll just call this our crud.state.ts, right? And I call that Cruise. Let's go ahead and rename this, make it actually CRUD. Boom. So if we take a look at our detail state, right? We've got an add dino state, an edit dino state, and stuff like that. We're just going to also create our CRUD dino state. So we want to export type, and this will be our dino CRUD state, right? And it needs a dinosaur. We need a couple of other things, and those all come from our implementation plan. So we've got dinosaur sort ascending and has feathers filter. So here we need to bring in our dinosaur. So there we go. And then has sort ascending is a Boolean. And the other one we also have is our has feathers filter. And that's a string. And there we go. So it's already picking up that, hey, we're using a factory function here. So perfect. So now we've got our empty dinos CRUD state. And now we can go back to our dinos CRUD store. And here we're going to use with immutable state. Immutable state. And we should be able to bring that in. it's not signals. I'm sorry, friend. Definitely not signals. Import with immutable state. And that's coming from at Angular Architects and GRX Toolkit. And now it's saying, hey, you're not providing me an immutable state. Perfect. This is our dynos. What do we call it? We called it empty dynos CRUD state. So empty dynos CRUD state. Boom. So now we've got a dynos CRUD store that's a signal that has dynos on it. That's a signal, right? And it's got sort ascending and has feathers. So we're in a good place. So that immediately allows us to move into our computed. So we need selectors for sort directed, sort direction, and feathers filter. So let's go back to our store. And where did we put our component store? Dynos CRUD store service. Here it is. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. I don't know if you guys have seen ReZero, which I really enjoy. But me saying "look at this" over and over again made me think of oh, what's his name? I can't remember. The guy with the hidden hands. My brain is trembling, dude. He was a fun guy. And dinosaurs. And we can get rid of this. So there we go. So that gives us that. Our empty state is that. And then, so and I want to keep this one open. But the implementation plan says we want to create computeds for sort direction and has feathers. So here's our sort direction. And our sort direction is that. So we're using ascending and descending. Our sort ascending is set to true. So we just need a computed that can turn sort ascending into this. So we can actually take this code. Actually, we can take a lot of this code here and go back to our store, and we can just say, hey, with computed, boom. And here we want to say state, and we're going to return a few things. And so here, the big one we want, and thank you for what you're trying to do, but we want sort direction. So here we're going to say sort direction. And am I doing my with computed wrong? I probably am. It's been a while since I've written a computed. So let's take a look at with dyno edit. With methods, nothing here. With computed, we're pulling out call state. So yeah, we need the computed here. That's a function that returns it. So this needs to have computed. And we'll pull that in from NGRX core. Wait, no, Angular core. And this is going to just return this function right here. And it doesn't like this. Oh, yep. We need to call the, there we go. There we go. So now we can hide this again. So that gives us our sort direction. The other piece that it is saying, and what did I just close? We'll worry about it later. So we need a feathers filter. So the feathers filter has feathers filter. And has feathers filter. So we just return that. Which basically means we don't need the Boolean feathers filter. What does the Boolean feathers filter do? I think I closed the task. Has feathers filter. But the thing is, like, has feathers filter is just grabbing the signal off of has feathers and it's returning it, whether it's true or false. And so we'll just update this filter. We don't need that. So our Dinos CRUD stored there. So for right now, we're gonna leave this bool feathers filter out. The methods. So we need a way to toggle the sort direction, which we can do. And then the feather filter has feathers using patch state. Both good callouts. So here, fascinating. So we've got the has feathers, but we need this toggle method in here. And we also need, right? So toggle sort direction. We'll work on that one first. So we want with methods. Again, we're going to pass in state. And it's saying toggle sort direction. That works. No. This update doesn't work. State dot sort ascending. No. What is going on here? We don't want to update this directly. We actually want to patch the state. And we need to pull that in. We want to patch sort ascending. Right, the Dinos CRUD store and it's sort ascending. Oh, we need to patch the state. Why doesn't it like with methods here? Oh, because we need to bring it in. There we go. So it's trying to create a draft, but we don't need a draft here. We aren't doing anything more serious than just swapping this with a sort ascending. Um, so the other thing we need to do is the other piece that it's calling out for us to change is the filter has feathers using patch state. So we also want to do update has feathers filter. And filter doesn't need to be a string. Filter can just be that. Boom. So there we go. So now we can update the filter and we can toggle the sort direction. So if we take a look at this, oh, if it's undefined, oh, so we do need that Boolean has feathers filter. Because what this is doing is it's returning undefined if there's no filter. Otherwise, we're filtering that has feathers filter equals true. Which is kind of strange, but we'll add this same thing in. Bool has feathers filter. And it doesn't like this because just possibly undefined. So we can say state dot. Oh, this is going to be interesting. State dot has feathers filter. Boom. Actually, it's not state dot has feathers filter. There we go. So that's going to handle that. There's a possibility that this breaks because if has feathers filter can be undefined, then the signal may not be set up, and if it's not set up, then we could have some problems. So we've got those. We've got the toggle sort direction. Asynchronous methods using Rx method or get table dynos and delete dyno. Injecting and using the dynos CRUD service. And then it also calls out we need to use with hooks to initialize data loading, which I really like. So if we take a look at this, so we've got our switch map here, and our switch map is looking at the sort direction and the feathers filter, and we're getting the dynos table based on the sort direction and the feather filter. So we're probably going to need a mutation or something like that. We're going to filter out. So we've got the delete dynos here. This is our toggle sort direction. Filter has feathers. Here's our has value. We're using Suspensify for this. Because we're calling into this stuff should probably be in the dynos CRUD service. So we need to get the data. So let's first look at delete dyno. Or no, this is getting the data here. So get table dynos. Is an effect on get dynos. Where's get dynos coming from? Oh, we're just, so this is an RX method. We're combining in when the sort direction changes and stuff like that. And we're switching to get dynos table. We're calling the sort direction and the feathers filter. So the nice thing about this, oh, and I need to end. We'll pick this up next time. But the nice thing about the observable is we're combining the call to get dynos with the sort direction and the feather filter. So if any of those change, this switch map fires. We need to create an RX method that just gets this and then grabs the filters and stuff. And then we probably, this is where mutations is going to be a big deal. So I think it's probably a good chance to take a look at this. You should definitely check out Manfred's stuff. Check out Michael's stuff. But I just heard my father-in-law, so we're gonna end here. You guys have a great weekend. Thank you all for showing up. Next week we're going to finish this. We're gonna look into mutations and see what we can do with mutations to make this work. Because if we don't use mutations, I think it's going to be much more complicated. So I think the mutations API is going to be a good place to go. Yeah. You too, Ole. We'll see you next week. Thanks again for being here. Have a great rest of your week.